The National Desk, America's News, now.
Tornadoes, hail, severe wind alerts, millions of Americans in the path of devastating storms, where they've been and where they're headed tonight.
Be resting pretty quickly. Resting meaning resting the case. I won't be resting. I don't rest.
Testimony in Trump's criminal trial has ended. What comes next and how long before the jury takes Trump's fate into their hands? Then it's Hollywood versus AI. What happens when AI chatbots, new artificial assistant, sounds too much like an actress who played the part just years ago? This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Amira David. Right now, 65 million Americans in the path of severe weather. Strong thunderstorms, possible tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds forecast tonight in Iowa, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Illinois. Flash flooding is possible in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. And it continues into tomorrow when another 60 million people are at risk. We're tracking severe thunderstorms, hail, and strong winds from Texas into the Ohio Valley and lower Great Lakes. The greatest threat tomorrow extends from North Texas across the Ozarks. And it comes after deadly storms in Houston, Texas that happened last week, killing 8 people. More than 120,000 Texas residents are still without power following those severe storms. We'll be following developments on this story throughout the night for you. You can stay up to date 24/7. Just head to our website, thenationaldesk.com. Both sides rest in the New York criminal trial of former President Donald Trump. As the National Desk's Matt Gelka tells us, the jury will now have a few days to process what they've heard from witnesses before closing arguments next week.
And we'll be resting pretty quickly. Resting meaning resting the case. I won't be resting. I don't rest.
Donald Trump did not take the stand in his hush money trial as his defense rested following their final witness's testimony.
I'm always ready.
Robert Costello, a former advisor to Michael Cohen, wrapped up his testimony that attacked the credibility of the star witness. Cohen is at the center of the 34 alleged criminal counts tying Trump to hush money payments, including to porn star Stormy Daniels, made in order to not derail his 2016 presidential campaign.
He lies whenever it suits his own personal interest.
We caught up with Costello last week, before he took the stand and after he appeared in front of Congress, calling Michael Cohen a liar. Costello had appeared before a grand jury last year that eventually indicted Trump.
I had all these emails and text messages that the prosecutors did not put into evidence. They cherry-picked, I think, either 3 or 6 out of 300 that they presented to the grand jury.
While Costello tried to undermine Cohen's trustworthiness for the defense, prosecutors brought up some of his emails from 2018 with Cohen. Costello, who had served as Rudy Giuliani's attorney, denied trying to be a back channel for Cohen to the former president and his inner circle. The prosecution asked Costello about a number of emails, including one from Costello telling Cohen his relationship with Giuliani could be useful to him. Cohen wrapped his own testimony Monday when he admitted he stole thousands from the Trump organization.
I think that cross-examination was a bullet that is strong for the defense. In most criminal cases, closing arguments aren't that important. The jury's usually made up their mind. I don't think the jury's made up their mind in this case.
And the former president continued to say there was no crime as the trial is on break until next Tuesday when closing arguments are set to be delivered. Amira?
And Matt, we didn't see the former president take the stand. You mentioned that. Did he say why?
Donald Trump didn't address it directly, but his son, Donald Trump Jr., told reporters there would be absolutely no reason and no justification for his father to take the stand. Trump Jr. called the trial a sham. Amira?
All right, live from Washington, D.C., Matt Gelka, thank you as always. Donald Trump and his handlers have deleted a video from his Truth Social account that some say evoked Nazi Germany propaganda. On Monday, while Trump was in a court in New York, a video was posted showing fake headlines of what a second Trump administration would look like. Under one headline is reference to the creation of a unified Reich. The Biden campaign quickly condemned Trump over the video. Trump's campaign press secretary said the video was not made by the campaign and was shared by a staffer who did not see the words in the video. Federal investigators say they found minors doing dangerous work at an Alabama poultry plant earlier this month, and that's according to new court documents. Marjack Poultry told ABC News the minors had documents showing they were over the age of 18. The Labor Department wants a court order to stop Marjack from selling poultry processed using child labor at the facility. And a Missouri judge is now considering whether an inmate should be released from prison after 33 years. 52-year-old Christopher Dunn was convicted of murdering a 15-year-old boy in 1990, but he's claimed this whole time that he didn't do it. The conviction was based on testimony from two boys who later said police and prosecutors had pressured them. The judge began hearing arguments today. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani has pleaded not guilty to 9 felony charges connected to the 2020 election. He appeared remotely today for an arraignment in Phoenix with at least 11 others, including former Arizona Republican Party Chair Kelly Ward. Most of them also pleaded not guilty to conspiracy, fraud, and other charges related to efforts to overturn Donald Trump's loss. Giuliani's and Ward's trials will begin in October. And this just in, the Justice Department sued Oklahoma today over a new immigration law that lets local law enforcement arrest migrants that are here illegally. The DOJ saying it warranted that move because the law interferes with its own federal enforcement. In the state of Washington, in the face of an uptick in organized thefts and shoplifting, some retailers are using unconventional tools to deter crime, in some cases using the power of loud music to fight back. The National Desk's Jackie Kent takes a look at how it may be helping and why some retailers are facing backlash.
Some call this musical method unusual.
At first, it's honestly kind of crazy. You show up and you just are listening to classical music.
It is super loud, and I definitely have heard people being like, I don't know why it's so loud. I can hear it down the street.
But this Tacoma store blasts classical tunes through caged loudspeakers with safety top of mind. While some customers question the song selection, they tell us what this store has orchestrated is working.
Because it made coming here a little bit safer.
The fentanyl, everything, like people are literally just out in the open selling it.
This practice is nothing new, as Como has covered similar solutions in North Seattle. But now the Tacoma shop's operatic efforts are met with pushback. The city provided this 7-Eleven store's 4 noise complaints submitted since February. One neighbor writes, the audio deterrent system violates every rule in the book. It is constant, far too loud, and I can hear it from my house 10 streets away. And this Walgreens on busy Pacific Avenue sounds more like an opera house than a pharmacy parking lot. This store has received 6 similar noise complaints since last year. City officials tell us a noise violation happens when the noise lasts longer than a minute, is reoccurring, and it's distinctly louder than other sounds in the area.
Create actual solutions.
Rob Huff with the Tacoma-Pierce County Coalition to End Homelessness disagrees with the musical tactic. What other solutions would you like to see?
So the coalition for many years has urged the city of Tacoma to create low barrier spaces where people can go, and so that they don't have to stay in front of businesses.
All right, coming up, the new step the Biden administration is taking to try to lower gas prices for Americans. Then how OpenAI is defending itself against claims that its chatbot voice sounds almost exactly like a famous actress. And later, human smuggling is getting more and more advanced. The new challenges border agents are facing in stopping cartels. Stay with us. 4 states are holding primaries today: Oregon, Kentucky, California, and Georgia. In California and Georgia, some races have national appeal. In Southern California, voters will be picking the replacement for former Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who resigned at the end of last year. The candidates, Assemblyman Vince Fong and Tulare County Sheriff Mike Boudreau, are both Republicans, so whomever wins will give the GOP one more vote in the House, extending their advantage to 218 votes to 213 with 4 vacancies. While in Georgia's state primary today could have an impact on the Donald Trump election interference case. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is being challenged by attorney and author Christian Wise Smith. And Judge Scott McAfee, the presiding judge of the case, is also up for re-election. This is the first time he is on the ballot, as he was selected for his judgeship by Governor Brian Kemp. The Biden administration is taking action to lower gas prices as summer approaches. The Department of Energy just announced they'll release 1 million barrels of gasoline from a Northeast supply reserve. Gas prices have fallen in the past month, that's according to AAA, to an average of $3.59 per gallon, but larger inflation persists. Gas stations will receive the extra supply by June 30th. Almost 2/3 of all Americans say their livelihoods dropped in 2023 due to inflation. That's according to a new survey by the Federal Reserve out today. The Fed also says that about 15% of adults couldn't pay all of their bills last year on a monthly basis. Overall well-being stayed roughly the same from 2022 to 23, as more than 72% said they are financially stable. Not every U.S. ally is condemning the International Criminal Court's top prosecutors' arrest warrants leveled against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. France and Belgium were among those breaking with President Biden, defending what they call the ICC's independence. Israel is calling on its allies to ignore the warrants. U.S. officials say the move actually makes a ceasefire more difficult.
The extremely wrong-headed decision by the ICC prosecutor yesterday, the shameful equivalence implied between Hamas and the leadership of Israel, I think that only complicates the prospects for getting such an agreement.
Nearly impossible, by the way, for the secretary to get those words out during his hearing. He was interrupted multiple times by pro-Palestinian protesters. Take a listen.
President's FY25 budget.
Funding a genocide in Gaza. There have been 7 mass graves. Lincoln, you will be remembered as the butcher of Gaza.
I was saying the People's Republic of China.
He is a war criminal. He is a war criminal.
Those protests, a sign of criticism growing against the administration that some Americans believe is not doing enough to push back against Israel's actions in Gaza, which has resulted in thousands of deaths. President Biden continues to support Israel's campaign there, though Biden is pausing some armaments to Israel over concerns of a larger ground attack in Rafah. Rafah, by the way, is in southern Gaza, where Israel is carrying out an expanding offensive. In just the last 2 weeks, more than 900,000 displaced Gazans, the vast majority in Rafah, have now been forced to flee in Gaza and find a new place to seek refuge. The UN now very concerned about how it will deepen a humanitarian crisis as it tracks rising malnutrition and the spread of diseases due to the displacement towards areas of poor conditions. Meantime, in Iran, elections have been set for June 28th as an investigation into the death of President Ibrahim Raisi, who died in a helicopter crash, continues. Some analysts say the change in leadership could cause a shift in Mideast relations, while others believe, because of the political system there, we won't see that large of an impact.
I don't think it will shift anything in the region or in terms of Iran's relationship with its neighbors or neighboring powers. That's because most of the power in Iran lies with Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who is still in power, and he's the one who is calling all the shots.
Hundreds of bags of dog food are being recalled because they could contain loose metal fragments. Mars Pet Care said the recall impacts the 44-pound bags of Pedigree Adult Complete Nutrition grilled steak and vegetable flavored dry dog food. It was sold at a Walmart in Arkansas Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas. The company said people should throw out the dog food and contact them immediately for a refund. A deadly air disaster as a Singapore Airlines flight hit severe turbulence over the Indian Ocean this morning and plunged 6,000 feet in about 3 minutes. The drop left a British man dead and more than 24 other passengers injured. Authorities say the man was 73 years old and may have suffered some sort of heart attack. The aircraft was a Boeing 777 with 211 passengers and 18 crew members aboard. Basketball phenom and WNBA rookie Caitlin Clark is quickly becoming the face of women's basketball, and now her likeness will be on a signature basketball made by Wilson Sporting Goods, who provides the official basketball for the WNBA. Clark has signed a multi-year $28 million deal to be a brand ambassador for Wilson and will test, advise, and give feedback on a range of basketball gear for Wilson. The only other athlete to have this endorsement with Wilson was Michael Jordan back in the 1980s. Pretty incredible. Hollywood actress Scarlett Johansson, she has questions about OpenAI's chatbot voice that sounds a whole lot like her. Johansson says the company asked her last year about providing her vocal talents, but she declined. She was surprised then to hear the voice of Sky, as it's called, sounding eerily similar to hers. OpenAI is suspending Sky's voice, but says it's from another unidentified actress. The Wall Street Journal reports Elon Musk's company, Neuralink, now has FDA approval to give a second person a brain implant. Neuralink implanted a chip into a patient's brain tissue back in January and reports some adjustments after a malfunction. The device is meant to help patients with severe degenerative diseases browse the internet and do other tasks by controlling a cursor with their mind. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We're taking the pulse of America.
In the moment, it's crazy. It's like all reaction. You don't really think.
In that moment, witnesses say everyone froze for a second, then immediately started running for cover.
Everyone just started dropping, so it was really hard to comprehend.
The team covering their 9-year-old bat boy to protect him from the gunshots, as the boy's father, who's also a coach on the team, was along the first baseline.
Well, it was all kind of reaction, right? There's not a whole lot of thinking at that point. You're just, where's my family and how do I get them safe?
Meanwhile, parents say this shooting was the last straw and they won't be coming back.
Winthrop school officials are meeting with Lion Electric and Maine State Police later this week after authorities say the buses came back with issues like faulty brake lines and safety doors.
They certainly have expressed a sincere interest in making the buses work. It just hasn't happened. So yeah, it's been frustrating.
Superintendent Hodgkin is also hoping to meet this week with federal officials from the EPA to learn if they can return these buses. The district traded in 4 diesel buses for the brand new electric ones as part of the EPA's Clean School Bus program.
There've just been a series of problems, from critical battery failures to compression failures to low power.
Yarmouth schools have 2 Lion Electric buses that combined have been driven about 3,000 miles this school year. An average bus in their district will be driven about 10,000 miles a year.
Do you personally still trust Lion Electric?
No.
So more than 3 million Americans will be getting on an airplane this week for Memorial Day travel. That's 5% more than last year, 9% higher than pre-pandemic. And here at DCA, it's been busy today. However, the roads will see the biggest traffic. Over 38 million people will be traveling by vehicle, the highest number since AAA started tracking in 2000. So what about the local roads? Well, in the Mid-Atlantic region, 4.6 million people will be driving. And the price of gas this Memorial Day is expected to be similar to last year. The average about $3.57, but the cost of pretty much everything else with inflation is up.
And coming up, southern border agents are facing rising pressure from cartels. We'll take a closer look at the increasing dangers in the region right after this. Well, summer travel season is here, and it will likely be busy in Europe, thanks in part to Taylor Swift. Both United and Delta Airlines, they say flights to cities where the superstar will be performing is surging. For example, the Eras Tour in Lisbon, Portugal this weekend. United says demand for flights there increased 25% when compared to last summer. Fans are flocking to see Swift in Europe, where ticket prices are so much cheaper, in some cases thousands of dollars cheaper when compared to the prices in the U.S. And get this, more than 1 million Swifties are expected to attend an Eras show in the United Kingdom later this summer. Just incredible. And check out charity. You've probably contributed to it in the past. It's when companies ask if you would like to round up on a purchase and donate the extra few cents to a charity. Well, those cents on the dollar are raking in big bucks, it turns out. Domino's recently pledged $174 million over the next 10 years to benefit St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And they're not alone. Engage for Good says in 2022, almost $750 million was raised in the United States. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Tonight, we take a closer look at an issue consuming the 2024 presidential campaign, but also touching communities from coast to coast. The challenges along the U.S.-Mexico border. Spotlight on America's Christine Frizzau just returned from an area that was recently designated the busiest border sector in the country.
There's been a lot of talk about the push and pull factors of global mass migration, especially in the region that has now become the busiest in the country. Tucson, Arizona, with a 134% increase year over year in undocumented migrants encountered, most looking to claim asylum. We met 19-year-old Lydia from Chiapas, Mexico, who had just arrived.
Mi país, las personas.
She told us in her country, people are killing people without consequences. For many of the millions of migrants who have arrived in the last few years, it often means fleeing one dangerous place for another. CBP's Air and Marine Operations took us up in their chopper to show us what they see. Hundreds of miles of desert with treacherous terrain and a border wall that more and more is breached, thanks to the immense success of human smuggling organizations or cartels. Using videos like this, showing so-called successful journeys to advertise with, quote, guarantees of safe passage. The cost? For those coming from Latin American countries, it could be around $4,000 per person. The number goes up to $20,000 for those coming from Europe or Africa. And for those coming from China, sources told me many spend between $40,000 and $60,000 each, nearly all of that going to those human smuggling organizations.
It seems like they're really savvy at using social media, at, convincing people to give everything they have and more.
They're savvy on reaching out to people and convincing them that, hey, the American dream is there for you, it's easy, it's safe. which is absolutely not true. There's no place on the southwest border more dangerous to cross the border than here in Arizona.
These dangers captured in photos taken by the Border Patrol. A woman suffering from severe dehydration, another barely able to move after falling from the wall. Those working at the Arizona Air Coordination Center are often the ones who receive the calls.
Some of these folks will get into these areas that it's going to take hours for agents to get to them.
CBP says those not left behind by smugglers are often taken to so-called stash houses where they're forced to remain until they can pay up. Agents told us the more coordinated these groups have gotten, the harder it's been for them to do their main job, to patrol the border, giving smugglers space and leeway to utilize some surprising methods of getting people or drugs into the country.
Now, as sturdy as the border wall is, those who are determined have figured out a way to penetrate it, using a blowtorch to melt the metal here, and then a sledgehammer to dig out the concrete below. It creates a gap wide enough for anyone to get through. These dates right here are when someone has come out to repair it 6 times in just 2 months.
A harsh reality those on the front line say they can no longer deny. As they struggle to keep up with processing millions of migrants, billions of dollars have flowed into the pockets of those behind bringing them here in the first place. For Spotlight on America, I'm Christine Frizzau.
And that does it for this edition of the National Desk. I'm Amira David. Thank you so much for watching.